Okay, this video I'm going to talk about like what you can actually get done in 1 year. So think back on I'm recording this in March of 2025. So think back in like March 2024 when you think back like, okay, in March 2024, where was I and where could I have been if I had decided to start then? So the analogy, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So all right, so maybe I didn't get started in March 2024, so I get started in March 2025. So then we can mark it in like March 2026, how much farther along I can be in that 1 year. So as you can see, from March 2024 to March 2025, the time passes anyway. So I'm going to come at it from the perspective of pretty much like all the things I've talked about before, and I've made videos on community, nutrition, training, your recovery, mobility, mindfulness, and consistency. Now, I'm going to also talk about having like a philosophical approach, which falls under mindfulness, and also I'm going to talk about supplementation, which falls underneath your nutrition. So, how I went about getting this in order for myself was when you look at first and foremost, when you look at all this stuff, like, oh man, how the hell am I going to get all these? Like, there's just too much to get done and everything. You just sit there, you hyper focus in a sense, just get that ADHD or whatever, that laser point focus on like, you know what, I'm going to get this in order. So what I did when I first quit drinking, I pretty much went Hambone Jones on hey, look, I have to get my ass to the gym 5-6 days a week. So I jumped pretty much just like dived right in, and I was doing 6 days a week. I started off with 3 days of a full body strength training. Like I used a model room at the local YMCA where it was just basically like machines, because I didn't necessarily have the confidence to be able to use free weights. So I used machines, which helped, and also I did 3 days of cardio. So now that first 6 months after quitting drinking, I lost a good 50 pounds, and so I got pretty much training all figured out, and pretty much that going to the gym habit of locked in. So you have to kind of day by day, week in, week out. For in a sense, sometimes you might have to force the issue. You get up here like, oh, I don't really want to go today. Just remind yourself like, hey, look, if I go, I'm going to feel better about myself. And that's how I went about it. And lo and behold, every time I went, oh, I don't feel like going. I'll just go. I'll feel better about myself. Once I got done, lo and behold, I felt better about myself, and I felt better because, hey, look, I just got my ass to the gym. And I just got something done. Now, of course, it didn't necessarily have to be like a PR every single time, but that mentality of like, hey, look, I got this done and everything. So that's when personally I hit pretty much a brick wall in my weight loss, and for another 6 months I kind of plateaued. So then I kind of like, hey, look, my training set, I need to start focusing on nutrition. So then I started like pretty much cleaning up my diet, cleaning up what I was eating and consuming. So instead of eating that, going to McDonald's and getting that Big Mac, I'd sit at home and maybe cook a burger at home instead. And of course this is where something like what I was using was MyFitnessPal. Like it was a calorie tracker, so that will help you track on like what you're eating. Like it'll give you a good idea of like, oh shit, there's actually 500 calories in this meal going out to eat versus only 400 calories in this meal. In this 500 calorie meal, I'm getting nothing for nutrients, but this 400 calorie meal, I'm getting like a nutrient dense stuff and everything. Then you can see like now you start making progress. So that's the second half of that first year. I really had those two locked in. So as you can see now, I have like two things already locked in. So if of course using the year time frame, you might want to kind of shrink it down and follow. No, I didn't follow a program, so that's probably the biggest mistake I made, is not jumping into fitness programs. So I probably would have seen like results a lot faster if I had done it this way. So these are like, I've also gone over some of the mistakes that I made going over the past several years or so. So it took me probably like a good 2 years to kind of get like everything in order of all that I talked about. So like now to kind of condense everything into 1 year, because like I said, it took me 2 years to like lose the 75 pounds I lost, and get like all 9 things I just mentioned earlier in order. How you can do that in 1 year is like now I talk a lot about Athlete X, and like do have done and will be doing like more program reviews. So what you can do is start in like whenever you see this video, you start with the AX1 program. It has a Jeff Cavaliere has a meal plans already attached to every single program that he has. So that way you already get your training and your nutrition locked in from day one. So like so you start off with the AX1 program. You have like your training and nutrition already locked in. So you go boom, day after day after day. So for 5 days during the work week, you get that program done. During the weekend, instead of like, oh good, like I don't have to do anything. Your weekend, what you do is like okay, you keep your nutrition in check and you get yourself out for a walk. So now you get your you use the 10,000 steps as an example to keep yourself active and everything. And like you could quite possibly like go to like a yoga class or whatever. Like when I was going to the YMCA, they would quite often have a yoga class on Saturday. So that adds into like a pillar, like the pillar number 4, the recovery. So it helps you recover from all the ball busting and ass kicking that you did during the week and everything. It helps you recover from that. And then like you make sure like while you're doing the AX1 program, you're getting your nutrition in check. You're using the weekend as recovery. You're also getting like your sleep pattern in check. Like yeah, they most people will you'll come across will say 7 to 9. So like usually like a good middle point would be 8. So you try like okay, I have to work 7 to 3. I go to bed maybe at 9 and I get myself up at 5. So kind of shoot for that 8 hours. And that way like it can kind of help the recovery. So as you're getting your nutrition and training locked in the first 3 months with like the AX1 program, you then start like after that first 3 months, you then go into the AX2 program, start improving on that sleep schedule. Like I said, you start maybe on the weekends, go to like yoga classes and like do that 10,000 steps and everything to help with the recovery. Then like in these first 6 months, like also like start like taking a look at like who am I surrounding myself with physically. Am I like I use the happy hour analogy a lot. Like it's Friday night. Am I going to happy hour and surrounding myself with the people, physically surrounding myself with people that are getting drunk and making stupid negative lifestyle habits and choices? Or am I going to the gym, surrounding myself with people that are making smart, positive lifestyle choices and everything? So you're going to want to go with the latter, with the positive ones. So you're starting to get your community in order. And the same thing goes with the digital content, like with the YouTube videos, like here, like who you following on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, like all the other ones. Like there's Blue Sky, Clapper, like all the like their threads, all like what am I engaging with on like on these social media ones? The same kind of concept. Am I getting into negative, stupid shit or whatever, or am I getting the things that are going to help me improve myself? Like YouTube channels, like the Athlete X channel and the Bioneer channel, stuff I've done over. I've gone over like a while ago, and like also podcasts. Like what kind of podcasts am I listening to? Am I listening to like maybe I'm listening to Andrew Huberman, so I can start learning about the science and stuff and stuff behind it, so I can start understanding like why I'm like getting into this stuff as well. And you might like motivational podcasts like the Jocko podcast and like the Norse Mentality podcast would be great ones. Now, so there's community, training, nutrition. So there's your first, and then of course your recovery. With the sleep, you spend the weekends walking, getting the 10,000 steps. You get the yoga classes in. So now you got all 4 pillars locked in over the first 6 months. Then after you do the AX1 program, AX1 and AX2 programs, the first 6 months, you got your first 4 pillars. Now you look at mobility and everything. So I know mentioned yoga doing on weekends and everything. So now you start maybe going full blown, start adding in more. So now you get that completely locked in. Mindfulness, what you can do is take a step this is pretty much with mental health and everything. So if you the caveat is, even if you don't need professional mental help and everything, check in, and if you don't, what you can do is you can go right into a journaling and or meditation. Now I do journaling, so now if you do need professional help, you get the professional help, and you do the journaling and or meditation on top of that. So now you have your first 6 pillars already locked in. And of course, with after the first 6 months doing all that, the second 6 months you get those things I just mentioned. You move on to whatever programs that you want to. So I'm going to use Athlean X as an example too. So you move on from the AX2 program. You have a couple options. You can start doing some of the 1 month NXT programs, or you can start getting into the other some of the other 3 month programs. Depending on where you're at, I'd say you go continue on with the NXT programs, build up that foundation, or if you feel like you're ready for some more of the intermediate, more advanced programs, I would say go with ones like Monster Maker, Old School Iron, All American Muscle, some of the other 3 or 4 month programs to build yourself up over the second half of that first year. And so then you have all that so after the first year, so I'm going to use the NXT programs as an example. So after the first year, you've got the AX1 program done, the AX2, and then you got 6 NXT programs. You've got and you're working on weeding out the negativities with your community, both physically and digitally. You're working on a recovery with better sleep and with doing mobility, getting out for walks, which will help with your mindfulness and your mental health and everything. And you're also working on your consistency, making sure you're getting everything in every single day. Now, so of course, life does kind of happen and it gets in the way. Sometimes, during the week, you might not necessarily do a train one of the scheduled lifting programs. So what you do is okay, take a recovery day. I didn't have enough time to get to the gym to do lifting, so I switched modes. I get out for a walk instead, take a recovery day, pick back up the next day, and then I make up for it on a Saturday or something. That I take that 5th day and so it happened Wednesday. So days 1 and 2 on Monday and Tuesday. Day 3 on Wednesday, I had a car breakdown. All right, so I take a recovery day. I get out for a walk. Days 3 and 4, I do Thursday and Friday, and then day 5 for the training regimen I do on Saturday, and then take usual recovery day on Sunday. So that's how you can kind of pivot when life does happen and gets in the way and everything. And now, with mindfulness, another good thing is having that philosophical approach. Now, of course, you could get into religion. Of course, there's the big 3 with the Abrahamic religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. You could go that route, or you could find getting into a lot of the pagan groups that or religions that are starting to pop back up and everything. So the best thing to do is, again, get into podcasts, read books, and find stuff that works for you. So now you could get into Stoicism too. So that's another big one that's been popping up recently. Marcus Aurelius is a Stoicism that could help you with and of course that's kind of a subset of your mindfulness and everything. So it would also branch into your emotional health as well, because your mental health and emotional health tend to be more linked together and everything. So now supplementation, in the process of getting your nutrition in check, with this being a subset of that, what you look at is where am I deficient in? So getting into my yearly physical video, so go back and check that out. This is why you want to do that, so that way you have a track record of okay, so maybe I'm vitamin D deficient, so maybe I've been supplementing with maybe 2,000 IUs. I'm still vitamin D deficient, and then you start maybe upping it to 5,000. Okay, or maybe I'm deficient in zinc or magnesium. This is where supplementation starts to come in handy. So you start supplementing with stuff that you might be deficient in, and so this is where a multivitamin, and you get into the the supplement videos that I've done where I kind of talk about those and everything. And of course, like protein powders as well, so like I can start up in my protein intake. Like especially if I like with lifting, you're going to want to like up your protein intake. So you want to shoot for like a 1 gram per pound of body weight and everything. So like for someone like me who tends to float like who tends to stick around 165 to maybe 170 pounds, that means I would have like 165 to 170 grams of protein and everything. So I tend to overshoot my protein intake, and I tend to take in about like 190 to 200 grams of protein a day. So that works for me. So it's like something again you with having experimented with that over the past several years, that tends to work for me. So like using that 1 gram per pound of body weight as the baseline, like for me, 165 to 170, you can kind of tweak it to see what works for you. So like shoot for that to begin with, and so that's where the supplementation comes in handy. So in essence, following like pretty much like I'll call this the Athlean X protocol. You get into like the Athlean X programs, and over the course of the year, you can get all the 7 or 9 things as I mentioned in order: your community, your nutrition, your training, your recovery, your mobility, your mindfulness, and your consistency, and of course, like also philosophy, which is a subset of your mindfulness, and like supplementation, which is part of like your nutrition and everything. So in 1 year, you can see how much you can get everything in order, and then once you do that, you can start to actually see you can springboard yourself into even more in future success and everything. So it's the whole adage of success begets more success. So it's like why not get into this now? And then when you look back in March 2026, since I'm recording this in March 2025, when you look back, you can be like, oh shit, I actually made a lot of positive progress instead of maintaining and not making any progress whatsoever.